right, so my name is Thomas, and I'm here today to speak about productivity and preventing burnout, and how to combine those together. Normally, I guess speakers tell people to put their phones away, but I'm going to do it the other way around here. I'm going to ask you to, if you're interested in what I'm saying today, you might want to bring out your phone and have your camera ready, because I have a couple of links in my slides that you might be interested in. All right, so about me. I have a master's degree in software engineering, and I just recently sent in my PhD in economics, in machine learning and analytics, so it's under review. I'm also a co-founder of the company named StageZero. It's a small company based here in Helsinki, doing game development. And also, lastly but not least, I've written a book called The Self-Aware Way Forward, which is going to be released later this year, in which I talk a lot about productivity and being focused, and also a little bit about burnout and stuff like that. Yeah, and so I brought my glasses just in case, so you would recognize me from the picture. All right, so why is this topic relevant at all? So to start off with a little bit of statistics, we have currently, last year, 75% of all doctor's visits were stress-related. So it's 3 out of 4 doctor's visits could be prevented if people were better at handling stress. Additionally, about 60% of all human illnesses are said to have an underlying cause that is also stress. Right. And that's quite a lot, actually. And furthermore, if you're in a situation where you're having prolonged sessions of stress, weeks or months or maybe even years, you're really setting yourself up for a chance of being burned out. And I would define burnout here essentially as the moment where the voice inside your head says or agrees with you that you can't go on anymore. That's essentially my definition of burnout here. Because once you get to that point, it's going to be really hard to do anything. And the interesting thing here is that people seem to think that it's the number of hours you work that is determining whether or not you will burn out. But I'm here to tell you that it's not necessarily the case. And I have some examples from my own life to show. All right. So compare these two scenarios. So a few years back, I worked at a regular full-time job, 40 hours a week. I was a teacher at a school, teaching programming. Just the environment and the teaching job ended up having me getting really close to a burnout. After that, I quit that job, and then I started looking into techniques and different things that I could do to prevent myself from ever going into like that state again. And so I changed how I worked, and with these changes, I was able to, last year, just out of curiosity for myself, I was able to push myself. I actually counted every day how much I worked. So I ended up at 96 hours per week on average. And if you compare these two, the first one, 40 hours a week, I felt like really bad. And the other one, when I worked 96 hours a week, it was probably the best year of my life. So there is a slight difference here. Right. And how do you increase productivity then? Or let's try to define first what productivity here is, or how you can increase it, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the different ideas I have on it. So research has shown that the average person spends about half his waking time lost in thought. So whatever you're doing, more or less, you're always half of that time you're lost in thought doing actually something else than what you were actually thinking about or trying to do. All right. So one way of increasing productivity would be to reduce the time you're lost in thought, right? And the other approach would be to work more hours. And I guess that's something that's pretty normal in this business. And as you saw, I've also tried it myself. But it's also up to a certain point. After that, it gets diminished, and you get less done per hour, of course. Right. But what I'm going to talk about here today is techniques and tips for reducing how much you are lost in thought, pretty much. And it's four different steps I have. The first one is to learn to control your mind. And I have a book listed here at the top called Thinking Fast and Slow by a man named Daniel Kahneman. In it, he shows, or he or his colleagues have shown through, I guess, 20 years of research, that the human mind consists of two different systems. You have one system that is impulsive, fast. The first thing you come to think of is always that system. Like somebody asks you something and the first thing that pops into your head, that's the impulsive system. And the other system is a logical, slower system that you take some time and you decide on something in a logical way. And so the idea here is to use these techniques that I'm going to talk about to let the logical system be more in charge of your day, essentially. And the first step here in this process, which was controlling your mind, is a number of techniques called mindfulness techniques. And here is the first link that I talked about, so if you want to take out your phone and take a photo, then now is a good time for that. So, through mindfulness techniques, these are short techniques, 10 to 15 minutes per day. You do, it's a kind of mental exercise where you train your ability to focus and to train your ability to kind of not change from what you're doing to other things, right? And the link here is to my SoundCloud. I've created a few different guided exercises. So if you're unfamiliar with these types of exercises, you can check it out, and I will guide you through those exercises, and then you guys can learn about the techniques that way. The second thing that we can use to become less lost in thought is to learn to control our body. And that's something pretty standard. Doing exercise. So light or medium exercise, 30 to 60 minutes per day is a really good way of doing that. So recent research has shown that exercise improves memory and learning, surprise, surprise. And through these techniques, we can set up our day so that we exercise when we are the least productive, and in that sense, become more productive. The third step is to create kind of situations for yourself that you're reminded of why you're doing what you're doing. So one of the greatest flaws that humans have in general is that we tend to forget why we're doing something, and we tend to forget what we are doing. So you start a diet, you easily forget a few weeks later, why did I start this diet? I'm going to stop. So if you want to become more productive, set up small cues in your day to remember why you're doing things. Could be post-it notes, it could be whatever. But I also have here a second link, which is to a YouTube playlist that I've created. It's a playlist consisting of motivational speeches. I found that motivational speeches are really good at getting you back on track with what you're doing. So finding out when you are not productive and then using cues to get you back on track. So the fourth and last step here is to create daily routines out of these different kind of ideas we have to become more productive. So we want to identify the weak spots in our kind of daily routine. When are you least productive? Can you answer that or not? I don't know. For me, it's in the morning when I wake up, I'm really unproductive for like 1 or 2 hours, right? And also usually after lunch, not doing that much for maybe half an hour. And then also in the afternoon, maybe like 4 or 5, I start to get tired again. So finding out your own weak spots during a day, and then you can use one of these 3 techniques that I already presented to get you back on track at the right moment. So it's kind of a trial and error period where you have to find out when am I unfocused, when am I unproductive, and then you just use one to fill in that void, sort of getting back on track. Right? How does this relate to preventing burnout? Yeah, so it relates to preventing burnout by creating a process. So when we create a process out of how we approach our daily work, we automatically also become less prone to burnout. I would even suggest that we become immune to burnout. Because if you follow a very certain process every day, then it's easy to continue. You never get to the point that you decide for yourself, I can't do this anymore. So if you build it into a routine and you have a good process for it, then you will be preventing yourself from getting a burnout. But also, the steps in the process will help you develop kind of the mental tools you need to be able to de-stress. So that's something that in the first situation that I talked about, I was not able to, in my old job, I was not able to de-stress. And that's kind of why I got close to a burnout. But now when I have the techniques that I presented, I can always de-stress when I need to. So that's how I see that working. All right. So that was my last slide. Here's some graphics from the game that we're developing. And yeah.
Applause for it. So do you guys have questions? We're open for questions. People in Finland are very quiet, aren't they? It's like, wow.
Hey there. Thanks for the talk.
Yep.
So this is all for preventing burnout. When you actually hit burnout, should you just assume these steps to also take you out of burnout, or is that a separate method?
Yeah, I guess usually when you hit burnout, you need to switch up what you've been doing a bit. So you have to get some rest. But I would also, yeah, I would say that you could start this as well if you hit burnout. It's in that case I would say it's both the mindfulness exercises and the exercising, just physical exercises. Those two will be the best bet to get out of burnout. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yes, just getting there.
So once you get good with the process of de-stressing,
Yeah.
How long does it typically take for you to de-stress? Like, how long is the session?
So I usually, for me, I usually go, I go for an exercise in the morning, like 40 minutes, 45 minutes. That's kind of, let's say, it's a pre-release of stress before I even start working. But then when I get stressed, I usually, in the afternoon, I use 10 to 15 minutes to just release stress through the mental exercises. Yeah.
Thank you.